gravely affected power production and, of course, distribution, and also because there is an ongoing systems upgrade. Well, now we've been told by the government spokesperson, Felix Kwatshiofosu, just some few minutes ago, that 3 out of the 6 units that were destroyed in that fire at Akosombo have come on stream. Why are lights still going off in this community, in communities, even as we speak? Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Edu, and tonight we want to look at this power crisis that unfortunately we have to talk about again. Is it beyond what the government is telling us? And if that's not the case, what is being done to ensure that relief is brought to Ghanaians, both in their private lives and businesses? My name is Beatrice Edu once again. Thank you very much for joining us. Remember that we're streaming live also on 3FM 92.7. Do send us your comments on all our socials and we'll read them back to you. I do have on the panel with me Mr. Michael Edu, who is the member of Parliament Energy Committee. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Good evening. I also do have as well with us in studio Mr. Benjamin Insia, Executive Director, Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you as well for joining us.
Good evening, and you're welcome.
Of course, we have our video call with us, Mr. Richmond Roxon, who speaks for the Energy Ministry. Good evening to you, sir. If you can hear us, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and good evening to my co-panelist, my very good friend, Honorable Michael Edu.
Of course, again, via video call, we have Engineer Justice Ohini Akoto, Executive Director, Africa Sustainable Energy Center. Good evening to you as well, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good evening to you, Beatrice, and good evening to the panelists, Honorable Edu and then Roxon. We've been on panel sessions earlier today. I'm looking forward to this one as well. Good evening.
Indeed. I did tell you that the government spokesperson, Government spokesperson Felix Kwatshiofosu has already given us an update, and this was just about an hour ago. Let me read that quickly to you. And he says that the third turbine at Akosombo brought on stream, resulting in a total of 420 megawatt generation at the hydro plant. With Pon also up and running, generation deficit is now 240 megawatt. Earlier, we were told that because of the fire, Akosombo had lost about 1,000 megawatt, and it had affected production at Pon as well, which had about 200, and so a total was 1,200 megawatts that was lost. Per this update, we're told that indeed what is coming from Akosombo is now 420 megawatt, and Pon also running, meaning deficit is now 240 megawatt. And then he says fourth turbine at Akosombo being synchronized and likely to come on stream soon. I want to perhaps start with you, Mr. Richmond Roxon, just to get some data established, really. And if you can tell us, first of all, what our current energy mix is. We want to have an understanding of it.
Let me say thank you for the opportunity. What Honorable Felix Kwatshiofosu put out is accurate. We all know that Akosombo had been lost. That's a generation that had been lost because of the inferno that happened around Thursday evening, or Thursday afternoon around 2 p.m., which continued to Thursday evening around 8:30 p.m. The minister has been supervising the team, the technical team, that's Honorable Dr. John Abdullahi Jinapor, together with the CEOs of VRE, Gridco, and then all the power sector players. And the effort for restoration started over the weekend. We have 6 turbines at Akosombo, and they've been doing that in phases, because without your control room, it's practically impossible to have your switchyard or the substation operate. But engineers have been very innovative. They've applied some technology. And as we speak, today around 1:47 in the afternoon, we had a third turbine come on stream. What it means is that 50% of what we have at Akosombo is now available. That's 50% of generation is available. And we've also been informed that the team is working tirelessly to be able to bring on board the fourth one. And so this is good news. It's been a very difficult couple of days looking at the challenge that we've had to deal with. We know that the people of Ghana have had some difficulty. There have been the impact of what has happened has affected part of the country, and then we've had a significant strain on generation, and so this is good news. On the question that you asked about our generation mix currently as a country, we're doing significant parts will be thermal. We have a number of thermal plants. We have renewable energy as well, and then we have hydro. Hydro largely is made up of Akosombo, Pong and Bui. Akosombo has an installed capacity of 1,020 megawatts. Pong has about 160 megawatts. You have Bui. Bui has 400 and a little over 400 megawatts.
Did you say Akosombo is 120?
1,020 megawatts.
1,020. All right.
Yes, 1,020 megawatts, and then you have Pong being 160, and then Bui being 400, a little over 400 megawatt. Then you look at the thermal, which is available. We have the private ones, and then we have the public ones. We have a Send Power, Twin City, we have Bridge Power, we have Boom, you have Sono Asogli, you have Senate, and so on, and so Car Powership, and so on. And then, of course, Bui has solar as well, which is a little over 100 megawatts, then VRX.
Okay.
VRX Kaliu. So basically, that will be what our energy mix is.
If you can tell us how much each is giving us, aside from, of course, Akosombo, 1,020. You talked about we having thermal as well. How much are we getting from thermal currently? And then the renewable energy you talk about, how much are we getting from them?
The total installed capacity, as from what I've given you, will be 5,812, just below 6,000 megawatt. That's the total installed capacity. And then you also look at what the available, what the dependable capacity is, depending on each time and what is available, the state of the generation plant. I've mentioned that of Akosombo. For TAPCO, we have 330. For TICO, we have 320. For Senate, we have 126. Asogli, we have a little over 500. And then we have Car Power, which is almost 500, specifically 470. You have Ahomaso Thermal, what used to be a Mary. We have AXA Phase 1, AXA Phase 2, we have Send Power, Twin City, Bridge Power. And then we also have the two renewable, which is solar. The solar, we have Bui and VRA. That's the one at Kaliu. And so that will be what our energy mix will be largely.
So you say that in total we have a little below 6,000 capacity, as it were. But from the figures you're giving me, it doesn't sound like these are operating, in full capacity, as it were. They are not operating fully.
That's not accurate. And that's the claims that some one of your stations is making, saying that their research shows that we have a generation deficit. That's not accurate.
No, Mr. Robson, that's actually, it's not based on what anybody has said. I'm looking at what you are just telling me, because you say we have an installed capacity of below 6,000. And I'm asking you how much each is given. Akosombo has a full capacity of 1,020. You gave us the bit about the renewable energy and, of course, that of thermal. And with the 500s and the 100s you're giving me, it doesn't add up to the below 6,000 capacity that you're just giving us, which is the installed capacity, which is why I asked that from the figures you're giving me, it sounds like these other options are not operating fully.
No, actually they do. If you add, the figures I mentioned will add up to 5,812, and the 5,812 thousand. I can go through them again, just if you want to do the math. Akosombo 1,020 megawatts. You're doing Pong 160 megawatts, Bui 404, Tapco 330, Tico 340, KT. PP are doing 126, Senate you're doing 126, Asogli you're doing 560, Siemens you're doing 80, Car Power 470, Pong Thermal you're doing 220, almost with Thermal, which used to be a Merit 250, AXA 370, AXA Phase 2 135, Send Power 360, Twin City 202, Gensa 192.5, Bridge Power 200, Bui Solar 105.5, VRA Kalio 28.8. So that is the installed capacity. And then you look at the what I mentioned, the available capacity at every point. The only major challenge that we have from what I've mentioned will be Akosombo and then Mpong.
Okay.
Akosombo is Akosombo from what I'm giving you is the daily dispatch for yesterday. Akosombo was doing 240 as of yesterday, and now we've had an additional one come on board, and then that will be available also. And so we have almost half the capacity of Akosombo available. And then we also had a challenge with Pong. Pong has Akosombo has an effect on Pong. And it's because of the way the Akosombo operates. Akosombo is up. Once it operates, the water goes down, and then it also supports the operation of Pong because of that. Pong had also been affected by the inferno or by the lack of operation by Akosombo. And so Pong was doing just less than around 50 megawatts.
Sure. Mr. Roxon, so the numbers you're giving me again, you're saying that we are at least around 5,000 plus megawatt in terms of what we are currently producing. If that is the case...
No, that is installed capacity.
Installed capacity. Let's assume that Akosombo is still off. Now we're hearing, based on the update from Felix Kwachu Ofosu, that indeed we have some megawatts back on stream. Let's assume that indeed that's what it is. If you take Akosombo out and we have a peak demand of 4,125, or let's even take it to 4,338, that is still 5,000. Why do we still have light out in major parts of the country?
Exactly the question that's why I mentioned that in any energy mix, you have what's the installed capacity is, and then you have what will be called the available capacity or the dependable capacity. So doesn't it go back
to we not producing enough, because you're disagreeing with the point I made earlier?
No. So when you look at the available or installed capacity, that will give you exactly what the production levels are. Until we had the challenge with Akosombo, we didn't have any issue with generation. Of course, we all appreciate the difficulty we've had in the last couple of days. Government has not hidden the fact that Akosombo not being available has had a strain on our generation capacity. And so that is where the difficulty is. If you read the post by Honorable Felix Kwachu Ofosu, who speaks for His Excellency the President and also serves as the Minister for Government Communications, he's clear that currently with everything that is put in place with Akosombo having 50% capacity come on stream, our deficit now is around 200 megawatts. If you have Akosombo in full, what it will mean is that you will have no deficit at all. And that is what we've been operating in the last 12 to 13 months. The fact is that for 12 to 13 months, we haven't shedded a single megawatt of power, not a single one, since last year, April till today. And that is over the period we've had stable supply of power. But what, as a government, we recognize that our demand is growing. This year, at a point, we have a peak demand of about 4,400, which will be the highest in our history. If you have such demands, obviously what it means is that you have to work tirelessly to be able to increase your generation mix. Fortunately, government of Ghana is committed to doing that. If you look at the approvals that we have from government, if you go through the last couple of weeks, you've had government approve a number of projects to be able to help with improve our generation capacity.
Mr. Rockson, I will let you take us through that very quickly. I just want to get the preliminary thoughts of the other members of the panel here, but just so we are on the same page, briefly, if you can answer this briefly for me. I just want to be sure that we're on the same page, like I did say. You're saying that the installed capacity is over 5,000. What is the available one? Just so we're on the same page. What is available?
Yes, that was the question I was about to answer. As at today, in fact, as at this morning, if we look at what our dispatch was for today, the available capacity was 3,580. That was what was available as at this morning.
All right, I will come back to you very. Yes. So that's obviously below our peak. I will come back to you very briefly for you to take us through some of the things that you're saying the government has put in place, including what we heard the minister say yesterday during that press conference, that the kind of system you're putting in place is gradually moving us from hydro. So if you kindly briefly hold on for us, just so you can give us that detail. But Mr. Nsia, you've heard the spokesperson for the Energy Ministry there, and of course the updates that I just read from Felix Kwachu Ofosu's page. What's your thought?
I think the spokesperson needs much briefing and also needs much information about the whole energy landscape. I think that he doesn't understand most of the figures he mentioned, and also doesn't actually know what actually applies.
That's an indictment. Why would you say that?
So let's build it. You see, the sector has three types of generation. So it has what we call the installed, it has what we call the dependable, and also has what we call available dependable, right? So when you asked him the question, I was just doing deduction. So assuming he mentioned that our available is still even hovering around 3,800 and something, then it means that our dependable is even less than the figure he mentioned. So you should look at the mass well. And I think, now, to some of the issues, I think these are the reasons why Kwachi also continues to misinform persons on his Facebook page. Yesterday, the minister confirmed that there's a deficit, right? And he did so because the supply, in terms of available dependable, is lesser compared to the peak demand or the demand we have.
But Felix Kwachu Ofosu is misinforming. In that statement, he said that we have a deficit.
No, but I think he also, I'm having it difficult to understand what they mean by deficit and shortfall. Because deficit and shortfalls are almost the same. They're just synonymous. So to tell us that you have 4,800, and I think that Rosin needs a lot of reading in the whole system before he comes to engage on such platforms.
No.
Let's just be. I think he needs. Maybe he's tired because he's been traveling back and forth, so he's quite tired. But I think that Roxanne needs a lot of reading to actually inform Ghana. He's a spokesperson for the state, right? And any information he delivers,
Mr. Nsia, I don't. You're not in government.
Okay.
You don't know the kind of information they have, so you cannot sit here and say that they are misinformed.
Okay, so let's build it based on the kind of information he has. You see,
what information
the system.
Do you have
let me
counter what you claim is
the energy landscape in Ghana, or the power system in Ghana, always has data being published either by the Energy Commission or by the Public Utility Regulatory Commission. These are public data, and the Energy Commission, for one, has a data they call, or a report they call, Energy Outlook, right? And this Energy Outlook even projects future installed capacities, future dependable capacities, and future available dependable capacities.
And you think these are more reliable than the government that is dealing with the challenge at hand and has the ins and outs in terms of information?
Yes, because the spokesperson for the ministry could not even do better deductions of the whole reality. And British, let me respond to some of this. So he says we have 5,800. You ask a very critical, sensible question, that if we do have 5,800, why are we shedding load? At a peak demand of 4,200 or even 4,300, why are we shedding load? Because there's even an excess of about 2,000 plus megawatts of power. Why are we shedding? Then he comes back to tell us that now available is 3,800. Then that is why I think that he needs more reading in the space, because there are 3 types of generation.
Mr. Roxon, I'll come back to you for you to respond to some of the things Mr. Nsia is saying, but let me get your preliminary thought as well, Honorable Edu.
Well, Beatrice, my friend Roxon today has the most difficult task in this country. I don't envy him at all, especially looking at the circumstances and the things he has to come out and say for the government. In fact, for some of us, we feel the government is trying to sweep things under the carpet, because you smartly asked the right question. What is our capacity now? And Roxon says, is at 5,000, around 5,800, a little below 6,000 megawatts. Then, if we are taking Akosombo out, so the total within Akosombo and Pong, let's say, is about 1,150 or 1,170. Even if you take it out, you are still within the 4,000 megawatt range. So if you have 4,000 megawatts, why are you shedding load? Why are we in doom so? That is the big question. That is the big question. Now, Roxon says our available capacity is 3,300. Sitting down here, I make my own deductions, and automatically anybody who knows the sector will realize that there are plants that are not being powered. And why is it that they are not being powered? And that's the big question that Roxon has to answer. Because I know some of the plants are there, they are part of our available capacity, our total capacity, but then they are not functional, because some of them are undergoing maintenance, some are going restructuring and upgrades and so on. So we are expecting them to give us the right figures so that we know that, okay, at this point in time, even though we have 5,800, T3 in Aboase under VRA has been decommissioned, and they're upgrading it into a combined cycle. The parts are not yet in, so that part is off. If you go to Sogli, they are not operating in full capacity. If you go to Pong, if you go to other places, you realize that some of the machines are not operating in full capacity. And based on that, we are not where we are, and the Akosombo issue has even worsened the plight of this, has worsened the situation. Government must be transparent. What are you hiding from the people?
What else do you need to know when, I mean, like I said, Felix Kwacho Fosu has already given us the information as regards what's going on. We've heard Mr. Richmond Roxon also give us information regarding mix and all of that. Beatrice,
when Felix gives me information and sitting on the energy committee, I also have contrary information. I do my own deductions and it doesn't add up.
What contrary information do
you have? The information I have is that some of the plans are not working.
Like which ones?
Like T3. We were in Aboase just this weekend. The committee just left Aboase. I inspected it with my own eyes. We walked to the plant and it's not working. So if some of these plants are not working, how do you lump it all and say we have enough capacity?
And did you find out why
because
your claim is not working?
It's been upgraded.
But the government has already told us that we have systems upgrade currently going on, and we have even been given a timeline of 3 months.
That is why we are saying that, no, the systems upgrade that the government keeps doing, talking about, we have the production side, we have the transmission side and the distribution side. The government is speaking about the distribution side, that is the transformers that they are putting up in various communities, and the fact that they need to build box supply points and so on. That is what the government is talking about. But when it comes to the production side, they are not opening up to how much of our thermal plants are not functional. And they have to come clear on that so that Ghanaians know that if we do not have enough capacity at the moment, then there is doom so. And based on that, bring a timetable, bring a schedule so that we can all appreciate the situation that we are in. Then people can plan properly.
Mr. Ahiniakoto, I want to get your brief thoughts before I get back to Mr. Richmond Roxon, who will give us his thoughts and take leave of us. But Mr. Ahiniakoto, what's your thoughts on what has been shared with us so far, and really perhaps what we need to do to ensure that we're able to deal with this situation currently at hand?
Thank you. So what I'll say is that we don't have to politicize our energy sector. Energy is a national security threat. It's a serious business. We don't have to wear party colors when it comes to the energy sector. The issue within this sector is that at the moment, the shortage is not a capacity issue. We understand there have been some shortfall regarding, the 1,000 megawatts that has gone off as a result of the Akosombo. But you can bear with me that even before this incident, we saw the pocket of power outages happening within Ghana. What is happening is that we have the energy sector, we have generation, transmission, and then distribution. We go to the generation. Roxanne mentioned that we have about 5,000. So when you look at the Energy Commission report from last year, the capacity is about 5,700. Our peak load is about 4,300. We look at the generation from Akosombo, about 1,000. When you deduct that, you are going to get about 4,700. Even when you have a spinning reserve of about 10%, you'll still be able to meet your demand. The issue here is that we understand like P3 and then some other ones are undergoing maintenance. So that is there. So when it talks about the capacity that we have, we should be able to have the capacity to serve people. And there are two different types of demands. We have the normal demand and the peak loads. The peak loads happen within the Ghana, our energy sector is made in a way that majority is used for residential purposes. So within the evening around 6 p.m. and maybe 10 p.m. when we are home, we see most of our curve going up. In the morning when we wake up and getting ready to go to work, we see our curve going up. So that is how our power structure is made. Now let's go to the transmission side. Gridco, they have been a bit more stable within now. Let's go to the distribution. The major issue here is the retrofit that ECG is doing. That is what has caused majority of the power outages that we see today. Before ECG started some of this transformer changes, the power, you can bear with me, was stable. But then what they are doing is that it's good we have to upgrade the system. But then the approach ECG is using, that is what we are calling against. ECG has to introduce what we call a redundancy, that they will be able to supply the power to Ghanaians without a hurt or without impeding supply. That is what we are calling for. But the fact that you are going to change a transformer in, let's say, Teshi or Nungwa, and you have to put the whole line off, and then take some hours to take off the transformer, some hours to bring it on. It takes hours. Some of them can even take days. So it means the whole line is off. So what we are telling ECG is that it's good. Upgrade is good. We should have done it about 10 years ago. We didn't do it. It has caught up with us. We see transformers overloading, overheating, catching fire. It's good. But then the approach, they should introduce redundancy into the system that will provide an alternate line that they'll be able to change those transformers without impeding the customer. So that is what the Energy Ministry, Roxanne, and then the ministry should ensure that we need ECG to be innovative. They should be able to find a way to provide the power without impeding the supply. So when you look at the chain, if there's any impediment in any of the chain, the customer will not get supply. So at this moment, this is the issue. If today ECG put a pause on the transformer changes that they are doing, we have seen about almost 3 of the plant from Akosombo coming online. It's going to add to the generation that we have. If ECG should put a pause today, the power outages that we are having in Ghana will subsidize. It will basically be insignificant or zero. So you are saying ECG should put a pause to it, restore the system to normalcy as it was before, go back to the drawing table, re-strategize, introduce redundancy into the system. If they cannot do it, the African Sustainable Energy Center is there to help them. We did a study this year, last year, Zimbabwe did a similar thing, South Africa did a similar thing. We can work with them. So there are 2 things of the redundancy. One is, if the cost of redundancy, you can get the cost of introducing redundancy. And also the cost of, if we don't have redundancy, How much are we going to lose? The minister mentioned that within 3 to 6 months, even the MD for ECG mentioned they can take about 24 months. So are we saying within the 24 months you are going to have pocket of power outages in Ghana? That is absolutely ridiculous. We have done the analysis as far back as 2018. The power losses, economic value of it. We can help ECG and the ministry do the economic analysis of introducing redundancy. We do a cost-benefit analysis and go for it. I see people talking about timetable. We are in 2016. We shouldn't be having conversation of timetable. No, we should force ECG to be innovative, to give us power while they do their upgrade. That is the issue, and this is the solution. This is not rocket science. I'm sure we are ready to work with whoever want to work, but then let's not politicize the issue. Let's tackle it and resolve it as a national issue.
All right. Let me come back to you, Mr. Richmond Roxton, just for you to respond to some of the things some of the allegations made by Mr. Nsia. And of course, what the Member of Parliament was also saying, that he thinks what's happening, the systems upgrade, as it were, has to do with distribution and not necessarily the production side, and some of the allegations that have been made. If you can respond to us briefly, and then we'll go to what the minister said yesterday about gradually moving from hydro to other systems, so we're able to have a bit more reliable power supply.
Beatrice, let me just make a brief remark that Nsia cannot pontificate and pretend he knows the sector more than anyone. He doesn't. I don't even want to debate him on the sector. There's installed capacity, and then that's the nameplate of design, and then you have available capacity. Available capacity is either the dependable operational capacity. So he shouldn't sit down, mislead the public, and see that someone needs more education in the sector. He hasn't done more work in this sector as I have done. And so he shouldn't even attempt to do that. We are having a discussion. He can feel free to share his views, but he shouldn't pretend he's more knowledgeable in the sector. And if you speak to engineer who is on the line, I'm sure that he will corroborate that Nsia is totally wrong. I was very categorical when I was responding to what I mentioned the figures earlier. I stated clearly what the installed capacity was, and then I also stated what the available capacity was at the time I was speaking. Back to your question, it is not accurate, and I have said that the supply plan or what the dispatch plan is, we are willing to share it with anybody who is willing to come around. Previously, we used to publish it for everyone to look at it. And so I'm sure that as a government, very soon we are in discussions with our agency, Gridco, to put that out every day. That will be easy for everyone to see. I still maintain that looking at what the dispatch plan is each day, you look at what your plan is, what's the status of the plant, your fuel availability, even your weather has an impact on which plants you dispatch at what point in time. And as we speak, if we have Akosombo back on stream, we'll be able to deal with the challenge that we currently have. If you are doing, for example, you have 160 megawatts in installed capacity, and currently your available capacity for BOM is 37 megawatts, definitely is going to have an impact on your operations or on your generation, and that's where we find ourselves. On the issue of the installation of the transformers, we've done the analysis, and the analysis clearly show that as we speak, our major challenge has to do with the distribution sector. The distribution sector is what interface between that's ECG and then also NETCO. That distribution sector is what directly comes to our homes and our offices. A lot of the machines are obsolete. Nobody can deny that. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, the former managing director of ECG himself, 3-4 years ago, confirmed this. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, if you needed ECG, lost about 1,000 transformers, and they were not replaced. And then in 2024, they lost about 800 transformers, and then they were also not replaced. You can imagine how many damaged transformers you have before you deal with obsolete transformers. Obsolete transformers will be very old transformers, and then you now come to transformers that have overloads, and so those have been the major challenge. And I said earlier that areas that have gone through the process of changing their transformers have seen significant improvement.
And I will let you hold on. I will let you hold on. Forgive me. I'll come back to you for you to tell us that. But let me remind you that Agenda is brought to you by the Bank of Africa. Activate your dormant account with Bank of Africa. Enjoy our refreshed products and services, including our enhanced SME support facility, USD debit card, credit card, and more. You may also update your account at any Bank of Africa branch with your Ghana card. Kindly reach our call center on 0302 429333, also 0302 249690, or chat Fafa at www.boaghana.com for support or inquiries. Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as strong as a partner. Mr. Roxon, if you're still on the line with us, I just want you to continue with the point you were making earlier. All right, we'll have to correct that line and then he'll get back to us. But Mr. Nsia, really, I want to come back to you on the way forward. Mr. Roxon will be telling us how this transition from hydro to thermal and other energy sources would come in or what happen. But if you can tell us, based on your knowledge, what do you think at this moment? Also looking at the country's pocket, what is more reliable or realistic for us to do to ensure we're able to supply stable power to Ghanaians?
First of all, I think based on my knowledge, if you have a higher capacity and you lose a bit of it, you shouldn't be shedding load. So if any engineer who listens to us will know that our available capacity is not the same as our installed capacity. So it confirms Honorable Edu's position that some of the thermal plants are not working. And I think my brother must accept that without saying that he's been in the system for God knows when. It doesn't actually mean that he knows much about the system more than some of us, because we have an interest area in that space and we've always been monitoring it. Now, to the whole system, I think one of the issues of our energy landscape, one is of negligence, lack of prioritizing the sector, and also what I would call poor planning of the whole landscape. And lastly, also over-politicization of our energy decisions. Especially, most politicians want to increase accessibility, which is a demand-side issue. But in increasing accessibility, you need a robust transmission system and also a robust distribution system to be able to increase this accessibility. But we do so without taking into consideration these intermediaries between generation and also distribution. So for us to get it well, I think that we must critically invest in our transmission and distribution. Especially for distribution, I think that if you take the tariff, which is a multi-year tariff review order approved by the PRC, ECG needed about 4 billion to be able to operate well in that sector, which will span between now and then 3 years time. So that is one. Now the other thing I'll talk about also has to do with the generation, which has been a major problem. So there are two scenarios here. I think the government wants to go thermal. I've always maintained that looking at our transition framework, it is also good that we also make nuclear energy our base load because it's quite affordable, quite cheaper. And any country that wants to industrialize or develop will need a nuclear power to boost this particular growth and development that we want as a country. Unfortunately for us, we wanted to pass, I think I was part of a committee that critically reviewed the Ghana Nuclear Cooperation Bill. Yet till date, we don't know what is happening with that. And I think I urge a member of the committee to fast-track this implementation of that bill into law. Because when you get nuclear, which is quite cheaper, supporting the hydro, it makes our end user tariff, which is a implied tariff, quite cheaper, and also make sure that households and then firms benefit from it. So it all boils down to proper planning of the sector. Over the years, historically, we've not planned well, and that is why in 2017, 2019, because of poor planning, we had an excess of about 90%, and that also led to some of these legacy that we are paying in the sector. So we need planning, good planning, checking our demand projections, as well as making sure that we supply affordable power to meet these demand projections, without forgetting or not forgetting the intermediary, which is proper transmission lines and also proper distribution infrastructure to be able to ensure that there's that sustainability in the flow of power. If you're able to do that, I think that we are likely going to be out of these rules. But Beatrice, the challenge is that it's not going to take a medium term to resolve this particular problem. And that is why I also expect that the ministry must be very composed in terms of how they communicate in giving some expectant hope. Because if you listen to the ECG MD, Engineer Kwekwena, he talks about between 6 to about 2 years to be able to resolve the distribution challenges. What it means is that other areas are likely going to experience some of these. So we must tell Ghanaians that we are trying our best, the government is trying their best to resolve this particular challenge, but it's going to take a while to be able to do it. And I was even saying that, yes, we think that nuclear thermal, because it's a resource we have, we want to build our power landscape or energy landscape around thermal infrastructure. But looking at the cost of thermal and how geopolitics affects the price of it, I think that if you consider nuclear, will be far a better option compared to the thermal. So we don't only need accessibility. I think affordability is also key in driving growth and development. So government, for us to get a proper base load, as you mentioned, hydro, one of the cheapest, I think currently hydro is around 4 to 5 cents per kilowatt hour, cheaper compared to the thermal, which is likely doing 10 to 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So we need a base load, which is nuclear. And I think that if the energy planners, including Roxin, who knows much about the energy sector and being in the energy sector, should make sure that we have a nuclear power corporation so that we can get a cheaper and accessible power to serve us a base load when some of these disruptions occur at Akosombo or any of the thermal plants.
Mr. Richmond Roxin is back on the line, but if you're trying to watch us on Facebook, we're having a challenge with our Facebook stream, and so you can join us on our YouTube stream and also X, both TV3 and 3 News GH, just so you're able to watch in case you want to switch from your regular TV to our socials. But Mr. Roxin, I hope you can hear me. Let me just read this message very quickly before I come back to you. Yes, Prince Henry Koforidia says, good evening. If for nothing, let's commend the government and the Energy Ministry with its technical team for being innovative and bringing back power to us. At least we don't have Energy Minister that will tell us to bring our own timetable. The Energy Minister and his team have been truthful to us since the day one of the crisis. God bless our homeland, Ghana. Prince Henry Koforidia are sending in your message. Like I said, we're having a challenge with our Facebook stream. You can join us on YouTube if you want to switch to our socials. Mr. Roxin, please tell us about really the plan to gradually shift from hydro to other sources, just so we're able to supply reliable power, as it were, irrespective of challenges that we have.
Yeah, Beatrice, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, before I even proceed, let me use your medium to announce that not long ago, that's about 9 p.m. or 10 minutes after 9 p.m., the fourth unit at Akosombo was successfully brought into operation. And so as we speak, we have 4 units out of 6 working. And like I mentioned, we went there and came back around 1 a.m. in the night. And let me commend the engineers for the work they've done. As a government, you know that the name of the ministry was even changed from Ministry of Energy to Ministry of Energy and Green Transition. And so it tells you that the focus of the government on clean energy is critical. The government has been working tirelessly to ensure that we have other sources of energy, especially renewables. We've been set up renewal to concentrate on that. As we speak, one of the plans that the government has was to come up with a 200 megawatt battery energy storage system, what we call BESS, to also help improve and also diversify our energy mix. We've signed on to Mission 300 Compact together with the World Bank and the international partners. Our commitment as a government is to have minimum 10% of renewable energy by 2030. I know that some people may count hydro and describe that as renewables. We don't count that. We're looking at additional capacity to add at least 10% of what our installed and available capacity will be by 2030. We're also working tirelessly to ensure that as of now we are doing about 35 mini grids. Those 35 mini grids, we're sending them to areas where those areas are described as difficult to reach areas. And so areas in Ghana where it's difficult to take the transmission lines. And so you go to part of our Fram Place, these island areas, even Adana, Ketakrachi. We're doing a minimum 35 of that to expand electricity. Beyond that, we're doing 23,000 all-in-one solar street lights across the country. Between the off-peak and peak, one study that we've done shows that we have about 400 megawatts that goes into street lighting alone. And so if you move that, if you move the street lights off the national grid, you have available, what do you call it, power that you can use to serve other communities. And so we are working towards that. We are working on nuclear. We've been engaging.
And if you could wrap up for me in like 30 seconds so I can get the final word of the team here.
That's fine. We're working on nuclear as well. We've been engaging some superpowers. I don't want to mention the names of the countries, but we've been in constant engagement with a number of them to be able to kickstart our nuclear. And so it's very important, very dear to the Republic. The Honorable Minister has been working to enhance that. And when it comes to thermal, to working to bring additional capacity, we have approvals to bring Abensis, that's 380 megawatts of high efficient thermal plants, efficient fuel as well. That will use. AXA is doing expansion. They're doing about 450 megawatts as well. You know that this year's budget, the Ministry of Finance announced that the government is looking to do 1,200 megawatts of power. And so generally we are looking to diversify and also bring on board more generation capacity to ensure that at all times we have enough reserve margin. As we speak, as I mentioned earlier, we are very tight when it comes to our reserve margin. Years ago we had excess capacity. Now that excess capacity is gone, and so we are working to
Thank you. Thank you
that.
very much, Richmond Rockson. He speaks for the Energy Ministry. Thank you for joining us and for sharing those details with us. Let me get your final word, Mr. Edu.
Beatrice, so long before this whole issue at Akosombo happened, there were signs of this doom. So I quite remember 4 days before the issue at Akosombo, the president himself mentioned that they were trying to fix some of the equipment so Ghanaians should bear with the government and all that. So it's just about semantics, the choice of language. Instead of telling us that there's doom so and that you need a timetable, we will tell you that, okay, we are fixing it. And if you are fixing it in trees, what? Doom CC. The same thing that Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh said.
I thought you said we shouldn't play politics with this.
Is it politics? I don't think it's politics when we are speaking the facts. Because on the 19th of April, 4 days before the Akosombo incidents happened, the president came out to say that they were fixing it so Ghanaians should bear with them. So it was Doom CC in Chi. Beatrice, when Parliament resumes, and even before that, the second deputy minority chief whip is going to file an RTI so that we get to the bottom of this, so that we understand the installed capacity, the available capacity as it is. And so that we understand the peak periods, how much capacity we need. Then we can do our own deductions and understand that, okay, if Akosombo was off, why were we even experiencing the situation that we are experiencing? But most importantly, for our side on the minority, I quite remember during the 2024 elections, one of the key things that we were talking about was that we should find a way that some of these communities will go off the grid, and then we put some of these communities on solar to at least give those communities power. Then the grid will not be so much burdened with the situation that we are seeing now.
So you're going to take this very seriously
no,
when Parliament resumes?
Very seriously. And Roxanne was talking about nuclear. You know, in 2021, there was a
I would
cabinet.
be grateful if you could be wrapping up.
I'm wrapping up. There was a cabinet approval, and then cabinet through the Ministry of Energy issued RTIs to about 6 vendors through their 6 countries through their machines to give us small modular reactors and large modular reactors so that we can transition into nuclear, which is quite safer and cleaner. And as it stands now, I don't know what the situation is. So we are all hoping that the government will be able to look at the generational mix, increase our solar capacity, put some of these small communities on solar grid, and also put more investment into the energy sector so that we do not find ourselves challenging when a strategic plants like the Akosombo goes off. Then we all have to face the dooms that we are facing now.
Okay, let me go to the engineer Ohene Akoto, who is via Zoom with us. If you can, in 30 seconds, your final words really as regards the way forward, bearing in mind what we've just had the Energy Ministry PRO tell us as regards future investments to deal with the root causes of some of our problems.
Okay, so regarding the issues, I mean, this is an issue that it didn't just happen. It has a historical background to it. We saw our first power crisis in 1983 when we had the power drought, the drought and the fire, we call it the 83 drought that we had. We saw a power crisis in 2005 as a result of urbanization and then the demand growing. We saw a power crisis. 2012 to 2015, we saw a power crisis as a result of basically capacity constraints. And fast forward, 2026, we are still seeing power crisis, mainly tied to, upgrades. You see, we need to be careful with the information that we put out there. The issue is not an issue of planning, it's an issue of implementation. We look at the generation bits. Every year, when you read the GridCo, supply reports, they give the government a direction on the amount of capacity to add every year or every other year. So clearly, the plans are there. The issue is the implementation. So we have to increase our generation mix, diversify it, and surely... So,
your 30 seconds is up, sir.
Let me just round up. Yeah, so, okay, so, regarding what we can do to safeguard what is happening at the moment, as I said, we have to go strongly on ECG. They have to review the approach that they are using, to do their retrofit, and then introducing a lot more of redundancy into it. That should be able to resolve our issue of power outages that we're having at the moment. And then now, any conversation on timetable, we shouldn't entertain. We should attack ECG to do the right thing. And then the plans that we have, the plans that we have, we should be able to, implement it, and we should be good to go. Beatrice.
Ms. Ansia, 30 seconds.
The life cycle of planning includes implementation.
All right.
So if we are planning, then we should be able to implement.
We are planning, we should be able to implement. Thank you very much, Benjamin Insia. He's Executive Director, Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. Thank you, sir, for joining us on Agenda tonight. Of course, we've had as well with us the Honorable Michael Edu, Member of Parliament, Energy Committee. Thank you for joining us as well. We had our video call with us, Mr. Richmond Roxon, who speaks for the Energy Ministry, of course, as the man who just spoke of our video call as well, Engineer Justice Ohene Akoto, Executive Director, Africa Sustainable Energy Center. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on Agenda tonight. My name is Beatrice Edu. Thank you as well for joining us. Do join us again next week. Have a good evening.
In a world full of noise, Clarity matters. Stories shape us. Ideas challenge us. An honest dialogue moves us forward. This is a space for depth, where voices are heard and perspectives matter. Conversations with Dr. Abinanya Kwasmini, coming soon on TV3.
TV3,